In the quiet shadows of a North American desert, buried beneath centuries of dust and silence, a human skull emerged and shook the foundations of everything we thought we knew about the history of the Americas. Its features were unlike any modern native tribe. Its structure alien, ancient, and haunting ignited a storm among scientists, historians, and political leaders. Whispers spread that this was no ordinary find. It was a discovery that challenged the very narrative of who arrived first on this continent. And who doesn't want that story told? What followed was not celebration, but silence. Documents vanished. Access was restricted. Even the team that made the find faced pressure to stop digging. But why? What secrets does this skull hold that are so threatening, so forbidden, they remain buried beneath layers of denial and fear? Was this skull proof of a forgotten migration, a lost civilization, or something even older, something the textbooks were never meant to include? Why is America hiding the truth about the oldest human skull ever found? The skull was unearthed near the banks of the Columbia River. In Washington state, carbon dating placed it at over 9,000 years old, making it one of the oldest human remains ever discovered in the Americas. It was named Kennewick Man, but what set it apart was more than its age. Its facial features were shockingly distinct from those of modern Native Americans. In fact, forensic reconstructions revealed a face that resembled Polynesian or even Innu peoples of Japan, sparking fierce debate. How did someone with these features end up in prehistoric North America? The discovery hit the scientific world like a lightning bolt. If true, it meant the story of human migration into the Americas was far more complex than the traditional theory of a single land bridge from Siberia. But the controversy didn't stop at academia. Native American tribes demanded immediate reburial, citing spiritual beliefs and ancestry, while scientists fought to preserve the skull for further study. Behind the scenes, a legal and ethical battle raged. Government agencies stepped in. Access to the skull was cut off. Why would a single skeleton cause such chaos? What were they afraid this ancient face might reveal? Could this skull rewrite the entire prehistory of the American continent? It began on a quiet summer day in 1996. Two college students were wading through the shallow waters of the Columbia River when they stumbled upon what they thought was a rock. But as they pulled it from the riverbed, they realized it was a human skull, worn smooth by time yet still intact. They alerted local authorities, setting in motion a chain of events that would escalate far beyond a simple archaeological report. When the rest of the skeleton was excavated, nearly 90% of the bones were present a rare and invaluable find. But the deeper experts looked, the more unsettling the discovery became. Morphological analysis revealed cranial features that didn't match the typical Native American profile. High cheekbones, narrow face, long skull. The traits pointed to a different origin altogether. Initial whispers among the scientific team suggested the impossible. That this man dubbed Kennewick Man may have belonged to a group that predated all known indigenous tribes of North America, a people long erased from history. Suddenly, the find was no longer academic curiosity, was political dynamite. And someone wanted it buried again, permanently. Who was this man, and why did his bones cause so much fear? As word spread, a team of elite scientists assembled to investigate the mystery. Anthropologists, geneticists, and forensic experts from across the globe descended upon the remains. Their goal: to trace the origins of Kennewick Man, to uncover his identity, and possibly rewrite the migration map of the ancient world. But the path to truth was anything but smooth. Almost immediately, they faced fierce opposition. Native tribes, led by the Umatilla Nation, demanded that the remains be returned for ceremonial burial, claiming Kennewick Man as an ancestor under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, NAG. But the scientists pushed back. The features didn't match. The DNA was still untested. They argued that burying the skull without analysis would erase a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to unlock secrets from humanity's forgotten past. Then came the lawsuits. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who controlled the land, blocked access to the site. Courtrooms filled with lawyers, scientists, tribal leaders, and through it all, the skull sat in storage, untouched, its secrets sealed under layers of legal red tape. The scientific team refused to back down. For nearly a decade, they fought for the right to study the bones. But what would they find once they were finally allowed to look? Was the truth about to rise, or be buried forever? After years of legal battles, in 2015, the barrier finally broke. The courts granted scientists access to the remains. What followed was a battery of high-tech test DNA sequencing, isotope analysis, cranial reconstruction. Every method modern science could deploy was aimed at uncovering the origin of Kennewick Man. The results? Astonishing. The genetic analysis revealed that Kennewick Man shared the closest DNA links not with distant Asian populations, as once believed, but with modern Native American tribes, especially the Colville, one of the groups that had demanded his reburial. The earlier facial structure analysis had misled the scientific community. The truth had been there all along, hidden in his genetic code. But the revelations didn't end there. Isotope studies showed he had lived on a marine-rich diet, suggesting he traveled vast distances along coastal routes, possibly arriving in the Americas via an oceanic path thousands of years before previously accepted models. This was no ordinary ancestor. Kennewick Man was a migratory enigma, whose life contradicted nearly every conventional belief about ancient human movement. So, if the DNA confirmed native ancestry, why did authorities try so hard to silence the discovery in the first place? Picture the scene. Over 9,000 years ago, a lone figure stands on the shores of a vast, untamed land. His people have traveled for generations along icy coasts, surviving storms, hunting sea mammals, navigating by stars. They were not wanderers, they were pioneers. Kennewick Man was part of a wave of early humans who didn't T-march across a land bridge, but sailed along the Pacific Rim, thousands of years before mainstream history dared to imagine. He hunted with a stone-tipped spear, traces of which were still embedded in his pelvis when his bones were found. He had injuries, signs of battle, survival, and resilience. His diet, rich in fish and marine life, proved he lived near water, moving along rivers and coastlines, thriving in a forgotten landscape. And then, death. Perhaps from infection, perhaps old age. His people buried him by the river, unaware that millennia later, his bones would ignite one of the most heated scientific controversies in American history. This wasn't just the story of one man. It was a window into a lost migration, a forgotten chapter of human resilience, adaptation, and movement. A story that threatened to redefine the beginning of American history. But now that we know who he was, what does that say about everything we thought we knew? Kennewick Man forced America to confront a truth long buried beneath layers of myth, politics, and institutional resistance. His bones whispered of journeys taken long before the textbooks begin. His DNA reconnected ancient bloodlines once dismissed. And his silence, kept for over 9,000 years, spoke louder than any history book ever written. But perhaps the most haunting part of his story isn't how old he was or where he came from. It's how close we came to never knowing him at all. 2. Having his bones reburied, his legacy erased, his truth sealed away by fear and control. What other truths lie hidden beneath the earth, buried by bureaucracy, dismissed by doctrine, or locked away behind gates of ideology? History is not fixed. It is fragile, often written by the loudest voices, but shaped by the quiet remains of those long forgotten. If this story opened your mind to how little we truly know, there's more waiting, more mysteries, more forgotten lives waiting to be heard. Like, subscribe, and stay curious, because the next discovery might be just beneath our feet.